Welcome to the Think Yourself Healthy podcast, where we challenge you to think differently about your approach to health and wellness. My name is Heather Duranja, and I'm excited to be here with you to take you on the journey from surviving to thriving. Hello, everybody. On today's show of Think Yourself Healthy, we have a special guest, Ashley Wray. She is the founder and CEO of Mala Collective. The company works with artisans in Asia, from Bali to India to Nepal, to create products supporting a mindfulness and meditation practice. Merging both authentic practices and beautiful pieces, Mala Collective wants to inspire you to live your mindfulness practice at home and throughout the day. Ashley designs the pieces such as mala beads, crystal kits, and meditation cushions by merging tradition and modern day aesthetic. Since starting Mala Collective in 2011, Ashley has taught meditation across North America, taking meditation trainings from LA to New York to India and Bali, and has worked to make meditation and mindfulness more accessible and fun. Thank you, Ashley, so much for being with us today. I'm very excited to have an opportunity to chat with you and bring some value to the listeners so that they can lean in more to their personal development, discover maybe some new mindfulness practices that might relate to them that are user-friendly and not intimidating. So thank you again for being with us.
Thank you. And thank you for the introduction. It's always funny to hear a little bit about yourself.
It is, isn't it? It's always that.
Thank you.
It's always that odd, like, humble moment where you sit back and you're like blushing in a sense, like, oh, this feels really awkward, but also brings a lot of sense of accomplishment when you hear someone else speak those words, right? And you're receiving that information. It just has a little bit of a different impact than you saying, you telling everyone what you've done and how you've gotten to this point. Yeah. So I'm curious, tell me a little bit about your journey and what brought you down this pathway with meditation and starting Mala Collective.
Yeah, so entrepreneurship for me was a complete accident. It was never a journey or a path that I sought out. So I'll give you a little bit of background. Before I started Mala Collective, I was a journalist and I used to cover murder trials. So it was a very different world to go from, murder to this meditation, this world of meditation.
We're talking two completely different central, or, two completely different nervous system response constantly being engaged, right?
Oh my goodness. Is it ever? And I remember the first time writing an article about meditation in a Starbucks and just thinking, oh, this is so much more peaceful. This is so much better. I love this so much more.
Awesome.
Which, it doesn't feel like, when you reflect on different versions of your life and different parts of your life, it doesn't even feel like that was me. It feels like a different version of me or a reincarnation of a different time. So I do look back on that time, that experience with so much love and so much gratitude. And it is weird, telling my story, because I appreciate it and I realize it's beautiful, and it feels like this funny disassociation of time and person. So, so having gone from murder trials, my partner and I at the time, we quit our jobs and went backpacking around the world as you do in your early 20s. And we ended up in Bali and we fell in love with these mala beads. And we were flying from Bali to Thailand. And this beautiful lady came up to us on the flight and said, "Oh, I love your aura. Can I sit and talk to you?" And, fast forward the conversation, she ends up being the woman that made the beads that we had bought and that we were wearing on that plane. And I know just how serendipitous. And she told us, "My guru told me to get these beads to the West. The more people that wear them, the more the world will be at peace. But the West needs peace the most." And we said, "Well, we're from the West, we dig peace." Just so nonchalant. Wrote her phone number, email, name down in a book called Screw It, Let's Do It by Richard Branson, which is even more apt. We got home a couple months later, found this book. Like, oh yeah, that beautiful hippie woman with that lovely, lovely energy. Let's help her out. And that's how it started. So if
Wow.
anybody had have ever told me, 9 years later, this is what life's going to look like, this is what it's going to be. And I say that story, it is bizarre because it is like a movie. It doesn't feel real. And I do receive that feedback often of, Ashley, I just wish something would fall in my lap like it did for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear that and I understand that. And I guess the only caveat I would add to that version, that, that experience, that version of starting a business is, one, it's been followed by 9 years of hustle and, limiting self-beliefs and tears and cash flow and HR and, all of these unsexy things where that is such a beautiful, serendipitous, sexy moment. And then secondly, I think we all have moments like this in our daily lives, but we're not always open to receiving it.
Mm-hmm.
So that moment of being open to receiving this experience, how many people do you meet in a day that could change your life and you could change theirs?
Mm-hmm.
How many serendipitous, if you want to call it a too good to be true moment, happen to you in your week, in your month, that we don't follow through with? That was our choice in that moment, to follow through. But it just makes me more reflective and more aware of, I meant to meet this person here today. I meant to sit beside this person at this dinner. I meant to, all of these experiences, just putting a little bit of love into the intention of that experience. I feel we can all have them. So that's the addition to the story I just wanted to throw in there, because it
Yeah,
is
no, that's
a unique
beautiful.
experience.
And I appreciate you sharing the transparency, because the reality is, entrepreneurship is not an easy road.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of ups and downs. And I think for me personally, detaching from outcome expectations have been one of the most beneficial things for me to keep picking myself back up when we're in those low moments and we have those big blows. I know for myself early on, after starting my private practice and becoming an entrepreneur, I ended up losing $20,000 in a business marketing deal that I had made, and I was completely devastated. It literally, destroyed my world for about 8 months. I completely lost myself, started eating pizza, drinking alcohol, just not moving my body, letting go of my mindfulness practices. And this led me down a really dark pathway of feeling so disconnected and so lost from myself and my purpose. And ultimately, I had to be very honest with myself and say, Heather, the reality is, yes, it sucks to lose financial investments. However, you were so attached to the what could be, the outcome of this idea, this big picture that you had planted in your head. And unfortunately, in business, most of the time, we will try 1,000 things and maybe one of them will actually work in the way that, we ultimately desire.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that you guys decided to go and backpack and, search, travel, and kind of search for the meaning and purpose of your own being, your own soul calling. And ultimately, I feel strongly that when we are on our path, the universe will conspire to help us. So it sounds to me like when you were sitting on that plane, the universe was like, all right, Ashley, you trusted yourself. You believed just enough. We're going to go ahead and hand you this little gift to get you started. That's beautiful.
Absolutely. I look back on it now with so much gratitude for, that time in my life that I was filled with so much trust and openness. And I am in this moment as well. But, when we look back on young versions of ourselves and think, oh, that's so sweet that you took that step. But thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that whole journey was actually inspired by, maybe a quarter life crisis. It was, we had reached all these goals and these things that we had set out for ourselves in our life, and we achieved them and really didn't feel a lot of purpose in our lives. So, I think you're right. We were searching on that journey as well. We didn't know what we were searching for. We thought it was adventure and, freedom and connection, and it open allowed us to receive that experience. So
That's beautiful. I love it. I think it's so important for us to really try to be open to listening to our intuition. We always get the messages, we always have the calling, and more often than less, because we are so disconnected from ourselves with our busy lives and, maybe not eating great nutrition and not getting appropriate sleep and moving our bodies and leaning into our mindfulness practices, it sometimes can be a big challenge to trust that gut instinct. There's so much self-doubt. And I know for my own journey, the more that I stay consistent with my lifestyle behaviors that I value so much, it allows me to have clear access to that intuition and be very trusting and, having the ability to believe in whatever it is that I'm feeling, and then therefore be able to take the action or not take the action. Yeah. So I'm curious, being a business owner and having, just like everyone else, a very busy life, how do you juggle being able to still be successful and find boundaries to incorporate the mindfulness and the meditation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually, for some reason, this vision is coming up. I was doing an exercise once in New York at a business retreat out in the Hamptons, and very lucky to even be able to say that I've been to the Hamptons. It's such a, grew up watching it in movies and TV shows. It's a pretty surreal experience to go out there. But doing this business retreat about values and goal setting, and the coach led us through our values in our business and our personal life. And I was the only person at the retreat that had the same values in my business as I did my personal life. And that moment, it kind of clicked, like, oh, I did that very intentionally. That my business is a reflection of the things I want to achieve in my own personal life. So this search of curiosity and this search of self-connection and authenticity, and anyway, all of these beautiful things I truly believe that Mala stands for are things that I am deeply passionate about. So I find that this merging is really natural in my life. Not that I don't have boundaries, that I know when not to work and when to close my laptop now. But I find this fluidity that I live. I feel like I live the brand so deeply that sometimes maybe I don't even recognize that separation between myself and the company, which, to be fair, I've done a lot of work on. I've done a lot of coaching and therapy on. I am not Mala, because when there's bad days, then I have a bad day. If there's good days, then I feel better. I feel validated as a human. And that up and down of business, it is, as you mentioned, your experience as well, it can be really soul destroying. It can be, those low days are really low. And so to disassociate myself as an individual from the wins and losses of the business is its own work. But I do feel that I live in a lot of gratitude that I can share those values with the business, that I can, even as we're talking, I look around my apartment, I've got like 6 meditation sit set cushions and crystals everywhere, and Mala's strewn across my table. Like, it is such a big part of my life that I've learned to find the balance. But I do lean on outward coaching a lot. I do feel, we know a lot of our answers internally, but having somebody lovingly hold that space for you to tease those answers out. So I'm a really big fan of different coaching methods. And in this moment, I'm working with an intuitive coach, and she's really helping me to find that balance, to find that self-love. Using the word self-love at Mala it's such a big term. Like, what does that really mean? How do I live that authentically first? And then be able to share it with this team that I love so deeply. So I'm a big fan of doing a lot of self-work. So I do a lot of work. I'm always working.
I'm right there with you, girlfriend. It's, for me, I know that it's a forever continuous journey of trying to evolve and grow. I'm a huge advocate for coaching. I personally I don't even know how many coaches I've had at this point in my life, but there's always one, a new coach. And I find it just very beneficial, because being that we are so busy and we have a lot of things, we don't necessarily have all the time to go out and try to do the research. And so for myself, I'd rather reduce the stress, free up the extra time to lean into the more mindful and, restorative practices, hire the individual who is doing whatever it is I desire. They're doing it very well. I feel very confident going that route. I trust in that, and the benefits I've received from it have been immense. And so I applaud you for recognizing the value and seeking out others and allowing them to hold that space. And that is a part of self-love.
Yeah, it is. It's not always, not every experience is what I want to hear either, which I find really beautiful. Because sometimes, sometimes being the boss, I'm so grateful to be this position, but it can be very lonely, and you don't get course corrected often. And I'm very grateful. I love my team, and they're very open, and we have a beautiful exchange, and I'm grateful for the accountability that we have to each other. But there is something really special about somebody coming in and guiding you, and letting myself surrender to be guided.
Right.
It's I can step into this place of feminine and allow somebody to just love me through whatever experience I'm in. So I'm just so grateful. I'm very intentional with the coaching work that I do. So I was just working with a psychoanalytical therapist. So very deep. I felt very in the masculine in those experiences, to go back into my subconscious, figure out, where do those stories come from? How do I rewrite those stories? What are those limiting beliefs I'm carrying around now? And then now with the intuitive coach, it's much more feminine experience of, now how do we drop into our body and really practice that change? So that's the path I'm on in this moment. So every week I work with my coaches. Yeah.
That's awesome. Are you familiar with Jake Woodard?
Yes, actually, yes, I am. Yeah.
So him and I did a podcast a couple weeks ago, and by my surprise, I was not expecting or anticipating what to have occurred. But he basically did some coaching with me on the interview, and ultimately it turned out to be the most vulnerable, beautiful moment of my entire life, where we uncovered something so deep. I had no idea. It was I'm so grateful for the moment and for what it has provided for the listeners. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I encourage you to, check it out for yourself. The people that have reached out and said how much they were moved through this episode, I feel so blessed to have allowed myself to let go of the control, open up my heart, be vulnerable, and share that with others. I almost did not release the podcast episode because I was so fearful of judgment and how it was going to come across. And I've been so grateful for the response that I have received for that. So anyway, we're always learning, right? And these opportunities are always presenting themselves. And I recall in that interview, I was trying to resist it so hard. I was like, oh no, I'm losing control of the interview. Like, what's happening right now?
Yeah.
For business owners, especially females. So part of this was all about me being in my masculine and why I was stuck in my masculine and how I could embrace my feminine essence. I wasn't allowing myself to. So as business owners, female business owners, I think a lot of times we have to lean into that masculine energy in order to make it all work and, have the kind of success that we desire. So for myself, I recognize I have to make it very, very intentional for me to allow myself to fall into that feminine essence and create those moments for myself to let the guard down, have the vulnerability, allow myself to nurture, open up my heart. And so that's a work in progress right now for myself. So I'm curious. So I personally I never used mala beads until probably January of 2019. I decided to do a 45-day ritual. And part of this practice required a tiger's eye mala bead and a bunch of other stuff. So I got the mala beads and I'm like, I don't know what to do with these. I don't know where to start. I don't know how it works. It was very intimidating. So could you share with the listeners in the event that maybe they're curious about mala beads, but intimidated like I was, What kind of tips do you have?
Yeah, of course. I find that meditation in general can be really intimidating for people. And when I started, having stepped into this journey in a serendipitous, accidental way, I didn't know a lot about meditation. And I thought, oh my gosh, who am I to run this company? Like that's its own conversation about
Imposter,
limiting
yeah.
beliefs, imposter syndrome. But also, can I wear this mala if I'm not Buddhist or Hindu? How do I use this? How do I sit? If I sit down and I have thoughts, is that okay? Like, is meditation meant to be 30 minutes of me sitting there with just stillness and nothingness?
Mm-hmm.
And the most common response I get when I tell people what I do is, oh yeah, you know what? I know I should be meditating, but I do it wrong. Or I've tried it once and I just don't know how to do it. So I stopped. And we really have this all or nothing approach to meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll share a little bit in terms of how I was taught by one of my teachers. The point of meditation is not to clear all of our thoughts. It's to instead have a little bit more space between our thoughts. So if you look at meditation, if you visualize maybe a bicycle wheel and think about the center of the wheel, and you have that as your focal point can be your breath. It can be a mantra. So your mantra can be a phrase. I really like positive affirmations like I am enough, I am grounded, I am love. So you have your breath, you have your phrase, your mantra, or you have your mala beads. So the mala beads become this tactile focal point. So when you're focusing your energy, you're sitting, let's say you're doing a 10-minute meditation, you're sitting and you're focusing on the center of the wheel, and your mind starts to go out like a spoke in the wheel. And you get out here, out to the edge, and you realize, oh man, my mind's wandering. I'm really bad at this. My leg's asleep. I just heard a dog. Oh my gosh, just stop. Become the worst meditator in the world. So in that moment that you're out there judging yourself, you get to choose, am I going to continue judging myself? Or am I going to come back to my focal point? And am I going to come back and just let it go and love myself? Hey, that's okay. Come back, because in 12 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, you're going to go back out there and you're going to come back to your focal point, go back out there. So it's like the spokes in the wheel. You go out, return, out, return, out, return. Let's say in 10 minutes, you do that 100 times. So you have 100 spokes on your bicycle wheel. Okay, that's completely normal. It's completely fine. Maybe tomorrow you sit down and you have 80 spokes on the wheel. Maybe the next day you have 180 because you had a crazy morning and something's coming up for you. The next day you could have 40. So it's not wrong to have all those deviations from your practice, but the mala becomes that focal point for you in your meditation. So that can be, something that you are repeating your mantra on over and over and over again. So it's this physical, tactile reminder. So when your mind's wandering, let's say you've heard a dog outside on the street, and you just, oh yeah, there's this physical thing in my hand I get to put my attention into and my intention. So when you're using a mala, you're going around each bead, repeating your mantra, inhaling, exhaling, and just going on around 108 times. So it's this physical tool guiding you through a practice, focusing your energy, focusing your attention. And when you've gone all the way around the necklace, it signifies a full meditation. So, and then you get to wear it and it's beautiful. So it's
Ashley,
a whole bunch of things.
That is honestly the most beautiful explanation for meditation and the purpose of mala beads that I have had explained.
Really?
Oh my gosh,
Cool.
yeah, you did. I mean, wow, you really validate my whole experience. So when I started when I was going through a master's program, my professors were like, look, sweetheart, you're going to need to lean into some restorative practice. I highly recommend doing some meditation. And I remember the first time I sat down to try and meditate, and literally within seconds, my brain was here and there. And I was like, what am I even freaking doing? This is such a waste of time. And I jumped up frustrated. And then I didn't attempt for years. Yeah. And then every time I would make that attempt, I'd start judging myself. And so for me, when I did get those mala beads and had that tangibly in my hand, it allowed me to drop out of my mind and more into my body so that I could actually experience what I was trying to achieve. It wasn't perfect by any means. And there were good days and there were some days that weren't as great. And I would find myself, oh shoot, wait, am I 3 ahead? Am I 2 behind? But for me, it allowed me to just consistently show up. And the more I showed up, the less judgment and the easier the practice got. And then there were more benefits that I received from calming down, being more connected to my breath, getting out of my head and more into my body. So thank you so much for that beautiful, beautiful explanation.
I hope it
I
helps.
love it. So all mala beads, they're all 108 beads?
Yes, yes.
Tell me why is that?
Yeah, so traditionally, malas are from the Buddhist Hindu traditions. There's 108. I always joke there's 108 reasons why 108 is an auspicious number. So I think depending on who you ask, they'll have a different experience of why there's 108. So, for some people, they look at astrology or they look at the distance between the moon, the sun, the stars.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite is the belief there's 108 energy lines and they all go to the heart. So I favor that one.
I like
yeah, so there's a whole bunch of different reasons, whether it's through, the sun, moon, and stars. That's a beautiful one. And one I read was if you take 108 breaths in a day that you'll find enlightenment. So, I think there's a lot of like mystical, beautiful, traditional stories behind that number being really special.
I really like that. I think that for someone who has never tried meditation, picking up a mala bead set is something that could potentially be very, very beneficial, and it's something tangible to help them hold on to the practice.
And then wearing it throughout the day, like, I'm very honest. You don't need any of the products that we make for meditation. You really just need your breath. But the stories of transformation that we've heard of people using a mala through their practice and then wearing it, let's say your intention is patience and you meditate on that mala, you wear it throughout the day. If you look down at your wrist and you see, oh yeah, I'm wearing that reminder of patience. Does the mala, does the gemstone, does the crystals make you more patient, or does it become this self-fulfilling experience where you think of it more? And we've had people reach out and say, this mala has helped me through an abusive relationship, a divorce, through a sex change, through my kids going to college and being at home by myself and empty nesting, and all these experiences. It becomes this talisman, this symbol, this object that they meditate into, and they become connected to as this symbol of growth. And I think it means so many different things to different people. And I remember starting the company and thinking, am I just this mullet girl? Am I this jewelry girl? And then understanding get over yourself, Ashley. This business is so much bigger, and this experience is so much bigger that the more you move out of your way, the more that you allow people to connect with themselves through this physical object. So it's been a special experience, and I obviously am deeply in love with malas and wear them daily, but they are such a special symbol and mean so many different things to each person.
I love that. So for the listeners who have never played around or experienced any kind of mala bead, or even just maybe crystals and gems themselves, how would one get started? What would you recommend?
That's a great question. So I like to keep it really simple. Just let yourself be guided to whatever you feel works. And I know that's like a woo answer, like you don't pick the mala, it picks you, but it does. I do find it truly a really cool experience when I see somebody doing it in person, where they see the malas and they hover to one, they pick one up, and then they end up picking the exact same gemstone up on another table. And there's a reason that we're drawn to things, and whether it's the color palette or the shine of the gemstone, whatever it is, I've always noticed, hey, go to what you're attracted to, and then read about the intention after. And I've seen people just break down weeping, realizing after they've picked something, oh yeah, this is a massive reflection of what I need in this moment.
Yeah.
And there's also, you can look things up by intention too. And hey, I really need self-love in my life right now. And then whether that's rose quartz, whatever it is. But I think first let your intuition draw you. And then if you feel pulled between a couple, maybe then lean towards the intention that you're seeking to pull in.
I like that. I dated myself for an entire year. I leaned very, very hard from mid 2018 to 2019. And I had purchased myself a rose quartz mala. And on the 1 year anniversary of dating myself, I decided that I was going to wrap this rose quartz mala around my wrist, my receiving wrist. And within, gosh, probably, I don't know, it was really funny, but within a matter of days, I ended up having a really special individual connect with me through Instagram. And it was a very beautiful moment. And I remember reflecting back and always saying, oh, it was the mala. I was intentional. I put the mala on, and the mala allowed me to be open to receiving this new connection. And so I always love that moment. I'll never forget wrapping that bead around my wrist, and then how things played out from there. So
it's so
cool.
special. I love that idea of dating self. Beautiful.
Oh yeah, it was necessary. It was post the weight gain, losing myself, depression, financially falling on my face. It was like, okay, well, I guess I've tried everything else. How about I try me? Let's see how that works out.
Oh my God. And how often is that our last go? It's
Right.
our last move always. I feel like,
I know.
not always, but
no, I think that ultimately it is the last move. I know with a lot of the coaching that I do, specifically with women, it's so hard for them to choose themselves. We're always looking to get validated from others. There's a lot of, codependency and narcissistic type of relational dynamics that are very, very heavy in today's, society. And so I find that, we do choose ourselves last. Ultimately, I find that more frequent than less, unfortunately. So for all of those listeners out there, Ashley and I are encouraging you. If you're constantly choosing yourself last, now is an opportunity. We are giving you the permission, like we gave ourselves, to choose self-love.
Oh, I love it. I'm actually making a self-engagement ring right now with a designer. Yeah. One of my friends makes incredibly beautiful jewelry with like reclaimed stones and crystals. And so we met last week and we're designing my self-love engagement ring, not to block out intentional relationship, but to really solidify this commitment to self-love. And, it is such a big phrase, self-love. And I have I really love my morning practice, and I go through gratitude journaling every morning as part of it.
That's fabulous.
And I've just noticed starting the day with gratitude and starting the day with love and kindness has shifted how I talk about myself as well.
Yeah.
So that whole gratitude practice has not only shifted my outward experience with my team, with baristas, with, my family, with friends, everybody that I meet, but the words I say to myself are so much kinder and so much more gentle and so much more loving. And I thought, I don't need to wait for an external person to come and validate and love me. I really want to love my body the way it is now. I want to love my home the way it is now. I want to love my every version of who I am manifested physically and, internally. So I'm kind of excited about this ring. And I kind of already know the moment I put it on is when I'm going to meet my person, which I can already sense. It's like, when you're like, the food hasn't arrived yet at dinner, so I'm going to get up and go pee so it comes faster, because it always arrives when you go to the bathroom. We're like,
right.
I know that this is going to happen. So part of me is like a little bit nervous to finish this ring.
Well, I have to be honest. I think that I am going to follow suit. For some reason, I have been having a calling for a ring. And I hadn't found the purpose behind it. And I was spent 17 years with my ex-husband. I've been divorced a little over 10 years. And I grew up in that mindset that, as I was turning 33 and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do this now. I'm only getting older. And I saw people getting divorced and quickly getting remarried. And I just thought that's the way it happened. And so 10 years later, after being divorced, I was like, oh, wait, I'm not married yet. Like, what happened? What's wrong with me? Why didn't the same thing that happened for everyone else happen for me? And I recognized that the individuals that were getting divorced and getting remarried, they weren't necessarily in better situations. They were just with different people. They never potentially took the time to truly do the work, do the personal development, figure out the wounds, figure out what the triggers are, figure out what their typical reactions. And so for me, I'm very proud of myself for really leaning in very hard over the last 10 years and making that my priority. I wanted my daughters to learn something different. I didn't want them to repeat a cycle that I had repeated myself from, my environment. And it's so beautiful to see my girls thriving. And as I continue to work on myself and heal myself and lean more into my meditation and my restorative practices, they're embracing it, like just through modeling. And it's so beautiful because my youngest daughter is 20, my oldest is 24. And to see these young women so self-assured and being able to validate themselves and correcting their own reactions from previous triggers. I'm like, oh my gosh, I screwed them up as children, but by working on myself, it's helping to, heal them as well. And for that, I am so, so grateful. So
good for you.
I don't remember exactly where I was going with this. I know there was
self-love ring.
Oh yeah, the self-love ring.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that, 10 years later, I think it's time for me to get a self-love ring.
Yeah, a little self-engagement. I'm kind of excited about it.
I am so excited for you, and I hope that you please share a picture with me whenever you get it. I would love to see it. But yeah, we'll connect after this. I'll get some tips from you.
Yeah.
Love that. Is there a specific stone, or is it going to be like a alchemized kind of mineral blend?
Well, I feel I'm leaning towards like moonstone. I love moonstone for intuition.
Yeah.
I love sapphire. I have this beautiful star sapphire ring I got in Sri Lanka, and then also labradorite. Labradorite is like serendipity and synchronicity, and just how the business started for me. It was I so love and believe in that gentle reminder of how magic things are without you pushing. So just that reminder of, hey, intuition and magic and serendipity. I think that's where I'm leaning, but I'm also really open. And when it's one of my closest friends making it, so I trust.
Beautiful. I like what you just said. It kind of made me think about how we women, we really try to control our outcomes, right? We get so attached to expectations and trying to control the outcomes that it forces us to really lean into the masculine energies and not really embrace that more nurturing, feminine, open to receiving and loving type of situation. So with the mala beads or with meditation, is this a practice that you feel can help women lean into that piece of them that they're suppressing and denying?
Yeah, I think that in my experiences, meditation allows us to create the space to see those thoughts come up and to maybe see parts of ourselves that we don't want to see. So it can get really uncomfortable. And I've definitely been through meditation experiences where I'm like, oof, I don't like that, so I'm not going to do that again. And kind of avoided meditation for a little while after that, which is why I really lean into having a coach kind of walk me through those moments and remove that shame and remove that, the avoidance. We're really good at avoiding those uncomfortable moments.
Absolutely.
But I would definitely say, meditation, journaling, it's brought a sense of self-worth that I've never experienced before. And normalizing our human experiences and normalizing, which is why I think some people are intimidated by meditation, is because it's such an internal experience that, I was sharing with a friend, it's much like, when you're going to a yoga class and you look at the person beside you and they're maybe in side angle and you can adjust your hips and your shoulders and your arms based on how they're standing. In meditation, we could be sitting in the room together and I'd look at you. I'm like, oh my God, she's doing so great. Why am I the worst at this? And I just spiral, just like I'm the worst at everything else. And, and then maybe I close my eyes and you look at me and you go down that same self-judgment, but then I look really zen. And so I have noticed the experience of self-connection helps remove a little bit more self-judgment. And it has increased self-worth of realizing, hey, I do have those qualities deep in me. Even though I have some parts of me that I want to heal, I do have really beautiful parts of myself that maybe I just haven't tapped into, or I haven't let come out, or I haven't, or, I'm really seeking strength. And the more I meditate on it, the more I realize I do have it. Or I'm really seeking worthiness or self-love, or, it just kind of creates a little bit of space for those beautiful things to come up, and those uncomfortable things to come up. But it's just trusting that you can work through them.
So as you're speaking, I recalled what I was going to say earlier, and it was about the self-talk. I myself have found that over the last 10 years, as I have really grown through this journey, that I'm so much more compassionate. I'm so much more graceful. It's so much easier for me to validate myself. I did something super crazy recently, and I actually agreed to go on Discovery Channel and be part of a TV show called Dodgeball Thunderdome.
I love it.
Okay. So I'm thinking dodgeball. All right, I'm down. I love dodgeball in school. And so I go through all the steps, do everything, the physical, everything that's needed. And they don't really give us a lot of information other than just think like, extreme dodgeball. And I'm thinking, okay, we're going to be indoors. There's going to be a lot of people, lots of balls. It's going to be fun. Well, I show up the day of filming, and it's in the middle of the desert. It's about 115 degrees. We're having to wear the face mask. It's so, it was miserable. Okay. And then I see the set, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I get into? What did I sign myself up for? Because I'll be very honest, with quarantine, I was not as physically active. I wasn't doing a lot of the things that I had normally done, especially those first few weeks. And so I ended up injuring my foot, and it completely kept me from being able to be as active as I should have been. So I see this obstacle course, basically think like Ninja Warrior meets, what was that? Mad Max. Remember the movie Mad Max? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So that was the inspiration for the set design.
Yeah.
And it's my turn. And it was literally the hardest physical thing that I have done in quite a long time. Maybe birth might have been the first. But so anyway, it was a grueling day. It was like 12 hours of filming. It was so hot. I had sand and mud in orifices of my body I didn't know were possible. Every time I'd pull my pants down to use the restroom, mud, clumps of mud and rock and all of this stuff. I'm like, what in the hell? So it's over. I get in my car to drive home, and the old Heather would have immediately said, oh, shame on you. How embarrassing. You looked pathetic. You could have done so much better. You should have trained. You should have da-da-da-da-da. And the new Heather got in the car, and she was like, girlfriend, I am so proud of you. You are so brave. I cannot believe that you even showed up and just did it. And so it was beautiful. It was such a beautiful moment of awareness for me. I remember having that talk with myself, and then being so proud, just absolutely so proud. I was beat to hell. I mean, beat to hell. I had bruises and scrapes, and it was muscles that had hurt that I didn't even know existed. But through all of that, I smiled the biggest smile. My heart was so open, and I was so proud, because that was validation. All of the little work, all of the tiny little consistent practices I've been able to maintain, they work. They work.
Yeah. I love that story. Because it's also so playful and light, and you can have those big realizations with playful, light experiences. And I think that, I'm a big glutton for punishment, and I find more reward in struggle than ease. But I love that you can have that realization with ease. I would love to share the unlimiting belief track. It's been 9 years since I started Mala, and I would say the most crippling experience in the first 6 years was, I'm not good enough to do this. Who am I to do this? How dare I do this? And everything I wasn't good enough at. I'm not good enough at numbers. I'm not good enough at marketing. I'm not good enough at whatever. Every single day something came up and I wasn't good enough at it in my own head. And finally I was doing this meditation, and actually more judgment came on because I was like, oh no, you're not supposed to have limiting beliefs. You're helping people love themselves. How dare you, even more. And so it just became like, you can't be human. Like, it was all in my head though. Nobody else was saying this. And finally, one day I had this meditation, and just this voice said, get over yourself, get out of your own way. You playing small and you playing in this fear is really comfortable for you right now because you know it really well. Yeah. Get over yourself and get out of your way, because you're robbing a whole bunch of experiences from people. You being small and doing this, you're not letting this person experience this. You're not, and not in this ego way of, I am the be all end all of somebody's meditation experience, but in a way of, if they hadn't found us, they'd find somebody else. I know that.
Right.
But how beautiful if I could get over myself, that I could help somebody else on their journey. So that day was a really big turning point for me. And it doesn't mean through meditation, through journaling, and through gratitude that I no longer have those thoughts. I still have them because that's normal. Maybe it used to be, I'm not good enough at this, but now maybe this month it's, I'm no longer enough here, or I'm no longer enough in a different category. But now when I hear that negative self-talk, I can close that loop just a little bit quicker. So it's not that I've removed all of those voices. It's that I've learned to maybe joke around with them a bit more, or be a bit more loving, a little bit more kind, close it a bit sooner. So maybe if I'm having that spiral, I get up and go for a walk, or I go into nature, or I do some stretching, or I do, I know how to do a pattern interrupting, and then be a little bit nicer to myself, because we're always way nicer to a stranger or our best friends than we are to ourselves. So
absolutely. With that being said, I do want to just mention to the listeners, if they don't know this, we have a 90-second thought loop. And so when we're in that negative thought state, we release neurotransmitters into the bloodstream, and we become addicted to our emotional pain body. And so if we are capable of getting ourselves out of our head in that first 90-second loop, or when we recognize that we're in the loop, then we can pull ourselves and redirect the thoughts into something that is going to be more serving. That's a way to pattern interrupt. And I feel that mala beads, a lot of people, because they are so disconnected from their body, when we say get out of your head and get in your body, they're like, I don't know where my body is. What does that mean? I don't like my body. It hurts. It's overweight. It's da-da-da-da-da. And so I think for a lot of people who might struggle with that, having mala beads as a tangible tool to refocus, get out of the head, let that 90-second neurotransmitter loop, fulfill itself, stop releasing the chemicals, so that we can break that pattern and start serving our purpose and what we, desire. So thank you for sharing that. I hate to have to cut this off. This is so much fun. You are such a beautiful human, and I'm very grateful for you being so transparent and allowing us all to feel human. I think it's so important. So thank you for that. We gratefully receive that.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm just very grateful to even chat with you, and just thank you for letting me share that with your audience. And I hope it lands with a few people. And thank you for your vulnerability. This has been really beautiful. Thank you.
So where can the listeners find you and find Mala Collective?
Yeah, well, Mala Collective is our website, and we're on Instagram, and we are a small team, but we are so full of love and gratitude when people reach out to us. So please, if you have questions about how to find a mala, how to start a practice, we just launched an online course this week, actually, or last week, this week. It's all blurring together now. But we just launched an online course about how to start a meditation practice. So how to make it as accessible as possible. So, we have a ton of resources, lots of free meditations, but we're always here to help answer questions about, am I doing this right? Am I doing this okay? And how do I set this intention? How do I choose a mantra? So please email us. We love hearing those questions and feedback.
Definitely. I'll make sure to link everything in the show notes of the podcast to make it easier for the listeners to find. If you're not following Mala Collective on social media, or Ashley, please find her. She's got such a beautiful vibe. I love what you're doing. And if there's any way that I can support you, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thanks for joining us on the Think Yourself Healthy podcast. Make sure you leave a review and let me know what you think. I love reading your feedback. Come hang out with me on Instagram at Heather Duranja, and don't forget to take a screenshot that you're listening to the podcast and tag me. I love to share it. See you on the next episode.